how to get myself out of that room and into this one. We're going to give it a few minutes while we make sure everybody that's out in the main room makes it into this room or the other rooms, if they, whatever room they want to be in. So we'll start in just a couple minutes. Great. I don't see anybody else that hasn't been assigned to a room that they expect wants to be in this room. So morning, everybody. I'm Kyle Addix. I'm the Intergovernmental Salmon Manager for the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. Welcome to our North of Falcon 2 public meeting and coastal breakout. This is really, normally this meeting would be in Linwood. That's where it was for many, many years. And normally we wouldn't have much attendance from people more interested in coastal fisheries, just because of all the sort of satellite meetings we have that focus on those areas. I know we've got a number of ocean constituents here this morning that are primarily interested in ocean fisheries, and at least a couple that are probably more focused on our coastal river fisheries. Maybe just to kick it off, if you listen to Derek's modeling summary, and this is primarily of interest for ocean fisheries, that we don't have all of the northern fishery information in the model yet. It looked like yesterday the CTC was finally signing off on everything, so we expect all of that to go into the next round of modeling. Derek and others have done some work looking at what we expect to happen to exploitation rates when that happens, and we're expecting that the exploitation rates on Thule's will go up by about 0.3%. So looking back at the handout Derek went over, we're expecting it to be about 40.5% in the high option, 39.0 in the middle option, and 38.2 or so in the low option. So I know everybody's been waiting to see where things are going to settle out on that, just not for ocean fisheries, but for Columbia River fisheries as well. But it's looking like we're going to not get help there. We're going to go the other way. And again, I expect that after our meeting with the tribes tomorrow, we'll have another round of modeling that will show that. You heard Mark kind of go over the drill for the council meeting, which starts next Thursday. We'll be having our Washington delegation meetings at 7 every morning, and then moving into some of our more regional discussions at about 8:15 each morning as we walk through the council agenda, and hopefully get to a final fisheries package by the end of that long week for ocean and inside fisheries. we've got a number of staff, both from our ocean program as well as our Region 6 coastal programs, freshwater programs. So I guess I'll just kick it over and see if anybody has questions they wanted to ask. Butch.
Yeah, I want to maybe clear something up. There's been this new Jurassic Park summer coho that's all of a sudden after 40 years been bandied about, and I heard some banter on another call, so I thought I would kind of clear the oceans piece up, because the banner was kind of dinking around that the fisheries might be raping and pillaging these newfound fish, where people from all over the country go watch them jump over falls or some damn thing. So anyway, this year, North of Falcon Sport total will take 7, and North of Falcon Troll will take 13, for a total of North of Falcon non-tribal 20. In River Sport takes 9 for a total of 29, and South of Falcon just about takes half the North of Falcon Sport catch. And so I'll leave the treaty troll and treaty net to our co-manager friends if they want to expose that number, but it's not very many. So I just wanted to kind of clear that banner up, and it's good to surmise and guess, but those are the modeled numbers that we are taking of these newfound fish. So anyway, just thought I'd pass that on to whoever was interested and was wondering. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Butch. Any other questions, either on ocean or freshwater coastal fisheries? Not seeing any hands. Robert.
Yeah, I was going to ask Jenny if she had a chance to talk over with the tribal co-managers yet on what our possible freshwater fisheries look like on the North Coast.
Hi, Bob. Jenny here. We have been talking. I would say that I do not have a final, we're not quite there yet. I do not have really any updates to what we've talked about previously with seasons in the Quileute.
Okay. I'd also like to add that I know with that summer coho constraints, possible constraints in there, I'd like you to look at possibly, if we're looking at fisheries in there, if we look at possibly if we have to really be constrained on the wild populations of summer cohos, then we looked at maybe we just open the Quileute alone in the month of August and September, for those, that would limit our impacts on those wild ones, still allowing access to the hatchery ones. Or if that doesn't work, possibly opening maybe like the sole duck from the Maxfield Bridge to the hatchery, just in that 7-mile stretch, which would allow us access to the hatchery fish with minimal interactions with wild fish.
Okay, thank you for that. Maybe so sole duck to Maxfield to the hatchery, and
that would be that would be after the July 30 spring Chinook closure, basically, and kind of targeting just on those hatchery summer cohos. Last year we didn't get to fish for them, trying to protect the wild ones, and I know we're still not quite out of the woods on the wild fish yet, but still trying to craft a fishery. So that would be 2 ways we could craft a fishery and still have minimal impacts on the wild ones. while allowing us to either just have just a fishery in the Quileute for them, which once they get through the Quileute, they're scot-free up the river. And if that, or opening just the hatchery run of the sole duck, allowing fisheries just in there, which would also keep our interactions with those wild ones somewhat limited.
Okay, thanks for that, Bob.
Yep.
Christian, or
Hello, can you hear me?
I can't, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys could go into detail on the queets being rebuilt and what that means. We keep hearing that being talked about, like it's going to be talked about, but then it just never gets talked about. So that's like the first question I got. And I guess since nobody's got other questions, I guess I'll keep them rolling after that.
So I'm not sure what you mean by being rebuilt.
That's
There's
what
a-
they keep saying in the presentations. It puts it in quotations. The queets is close to being considered rebuilt. I
So
don't
there-
know exactly either. I don't understand what it is being rebuilt from, but I'd love to know.
So the Queets coho were designated as overfished a few years ago, and there's a very specific numeric calculation that makes that determination, and it's the 3-year geometric mean of escapement falling below a certain number. And I would have to go look up what that number was, rather than give you the wrong number. And so a rebuilding plan was written for Queets coho. There have been a lot of fishery restrictions in marine waters and in fresh water in recent years to try to escape more fish, get that abundant spawning escapement abundance back up. So
Right,
it just
the queets in the clear water were closed. So that's
Right.
what I'm trying to get to the point to is are those going to now be open this year since it's considered rebuilt? Or, I mean, are we going to get into a steady state of it being open now? Or
so it's, I don't know that it's rebuilt yet. Again, we have to see a 3-year series of escapements where the geometric mean exceeds that number, a number that puts it into rebuilt status. This year, the forecast is a lot better than it's been in recent years.
right, and I understand the forecast was poor last year, but the actual run was probably significantly more, especially with rivers like Snow Creek pumping out 7,000 wild coho. I would expect rivers like the Queets to do substantially more than Snow Creek, being, not even the size of a tributary of the Queets. So it's just very confusing. You guys keep posting like a 5,000 escapement for the hoe is good. That doesn't make sense to me. Especially, like I said, when the Discovery Bay's Snow Creek is getting 7,000 fish, why is it getting more than the hoe? Is that because of the Olympic National Parks dropping the ball on surveys, or why are those forecasts so low?
So kind of jumping around between regions, or
I'm not just trying to jump around regions. I'm just giving you an example of a
I-
tiny river having 7,000 fish.
and
confirmed.
there are different factors that affect survival of salmon, and they vary between rivers, even rivers that are right next to each other. So it'd be nice if we could be sure that, okay, we're trending up everywhere there, but each system's a little different. There are different factors that go into it. Specific to the Queets, I guess I'd see if any of our regional staff is online and can give a quick summary of what we know about Queets escapement in the last couple of years, and any more detail on what we're expecting this year.
Yeah, I know it was projected 3,000 last year, and that just doesn't make sense. You would think that river would have 50,000 easily, especially with rivers like Snow Creek pumping out 7,000. Just doesn't make sense. The Queets and the Hoe, both of them. So, yeah, somebody could. I mean, I think we got a couple hours here. I would love to hear a quick, brief explanation.
And I think Mike's ready to give you one.
Let's hear it.
I don't know if I can really answer the question as in detail if you're thinking you're comparing a system in the straits that one year may have put out a lot of fish, but if you look back at history, that probably not the case. Yeah, the Queets should be producing a whole lot more fish. The escapement goal is a range from about 52 or 5,400 up to 14,000. So 50,000 is probably a reach for that basin. The Clearwater is a pretty good producer. We don't have a finalized escapement from 2021 at this point in time. But all indication was it was above the forecast, which came out. And the forecasts are based on an estimate of smolt outmigration and a estimated marine survival rate. So it's been a pretty good methodology to produce forecasts for the Queets. However, we've had some poor ocean conditions, which has contributed to some less than desirable returns. So as Kyle said, it was designated as overfished a couple of years ago. So now we have some constraints to kind of let that population rebuild a little bit. And as he said, that there was a pretty good forecast. I think the ocean abundance was somewhere in the 12 to 15,000 range, which we haven't seen in that basin for quite a while. Certainly escapement survey or methodologies can be improved. It's got some remote areas that are hard to get to, but I think the method that's used and the data collected are pretty solid.
I think you guys collect some pretty good data. I've been looking into it. From what I understand, it's not y'all get blamed a lot for the survey data, but it sounds like it's a lot of the national park that drops the ball and just doesn't care.
I don't think people are dropping the ball here. I don't think we're underestimating the population because we're not getting surveys done. Both the park and the Quinault tribe do extensive survey work in that area, and we have a little bit of a footprint in collecting data there. So I don't think we're dropping the ball on an escapement estimate.
Like I said, I don't think it's y'all. I think you're getting the flack for it. I think it's other people. But
well, if you
that's
track the escapement trend, it's similar to what we see in Grays Harbor. We've seen a decline since 2015. We're now seeing kind of a rebound, and we're seeing the same thing in the Queets system. With that said, certainly we are going to push for a season that's in the river for sport a little bit more than what we've seen the last couple of years, because the forecast is showing improvements. We want to be cautious and precautionary in our approach there, and not do a big grab and say, let's go back to historical seasons, but probably something a little similar is what we're going to initiate our conversations with the Quinault tribe. I hope that helps out a little bit. Certainly you can get a hold of me after the meeting if you need more information or would like to have a longer discussion.
yeah, I appreciate that. And if anybody knows how to clear up the first gentleman's comment about, I don't know, it was really incoherent. He was saying he was clearing things up, but about the summer coho just made things more confusing, I guess. So if anybody can chime in on that. Also, I think I mentioned last time the possibility, are you guys not looking into, if we're considering the summer fisheries more fragile, and are we going to allow people in? Are we not going to allow them in? You don't put selective gear rules on the river right away. So is that not something that, hey, maybe let's do that. Let's protect the fish right off the bat, regardless of whether the run's good or not. It should just be caring for the fish, right? You're telling us that these summer and spring stocks are more fragile, then let's take care of them. I'm pretty sure anglers aren't going to have a problem implementing these rules. And are these rules, do you consider these rules to be even having any kind of impact? Like, are the effort we're going to do these rules, are you guys like lessening the impact we have on the fish through your calculations or even running calculations, or how does that work? I know you do all these calculations for the ocean, and if we do this and we do that, I don't really hear that a lot for the freshwater fisheries. Oh, if we implement selective gear rules, or if we take away bait, what kind of impact are we going to have? Or if we take away this, what kind of impact is it going to have? So do you ever take that into consideration?
So Mike and others, I just don't know enough about the modeling for the coastal freshwater streams to know, as you look at different gear restrictions and that sort of thing, is there any modeled impact savings, or how do you handle that kind of stuff out there?
Right. That's the terminology, I guess, modeled impact savings. So if we make those efforts as anglers to show y'all we actually care, we just want to be on the water fishing. I think I told Jenny Whitney that it's not always about, I need to go take something. I need to go home. I just need to be on the river, man, for my mental health and for my physical health. I need to be on the river. And when you guys start closing rivers, or you're going to maybe open it, nobody's trying to go out there and mess with these summer coho, man. I know for a fact I see maybe one boat. I go out on my raft sometimes, but maybe one boat in the entire 4 stretches below the hatchery. You can't even float the lowest stretch from Rainier down to the mouth. Can't, it's too low. It's too dangerous. It's almost too dangerous to go from Wickham Dimble down. So not a lot of people do that. The summer coho, if you guys see them in the river, they don't stop moving. They don't. It doesn't matter what the river levels are. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. Doesn't matter. They just get in the river and they go to those falls. And that's why they only spawn at the falls or the Cascades or whatever they go to. But they don't stop. That's why you don't catch wild ones. I don't know anybody who's caught a wild one. I've never seen a picture of a wild one. My buddy who's been here for 20 years says he's only caught one ever. They run to those falls. And I don't think we're having a big as impact as you guys think as anglers. So I'm just trying to de-villainify anglers and figure out how to do it. You guys aren't really making any suggestions, so I'm trying to.
Well, there was a lot in your conversation to unravel there. And yes, we look at all the gear restrictions and different techniques in which we can look to reduce impacts. And to be honest, anytime you throw a line in the water, you have the potential to have an impact on something. So, all of these gear restrictions are designed to increase a release or to increase the survival of any of these fish that you catch that we're trying to protect. So, is there a number at which we can apply to say a bait restriction? Certainly there have been a lot of studies that have been done that show bait has a higher mortality rate than other gear just because of hook placement. And if we have data that have those specific numbers in there, then we can apply to it. Certainly a mark or a catch and release fishery comes with a 10% hooking mortality rate. It's standard. We've used that for years. It's been proven.
I understand you use that for years, but I've read papers where you do netting surveys and you're messing with fish and netting them, and you're saying that's a 1% mortality rate, but me hook and lining is a 10% mortality rate. I think you guys really, like I said, you need to.
There have been a lot of studies done, and there's currently one going on right now in the Cowlitz River to help us clarify that. But a lot of studies have been done on catch and release mortality rates, and we're using certainly a very conservative one. We don't want to be underestimating our impact mortalities. So, yeah, we take all of these things into consideration when we do any of our fisheries.
In the study, are you doing catch and release mortality rate on selective gear fisheries versus just regular fisheries?
Right now, I can't.
I would have. I would
don't
think
have the
if
numbers
you're doing
right in
that
front of me.
study to have a very wide variety of things. That way you can and measure all those things, because you're going to bring that study to the table, and it's going to be somebody fishing with bait on the Cowlitz River for hatchery steelhead at an intake, and instead of a guy out on the hoe going for wild summer steelhead, which that is substantially different. That angler is substantially different than the guy on the Cowlitz. I really think. I mean, you can put that study in my face, but we both know that's That's a completely different angler.
So
And a completely different angler goes to a selected gear fishery.
every system is different. There are a million things you could look at. It's one of the most difficult things to measure is what is the actual release mortality for any given gear interaction, immediate mortality and delayed mortality. There have been a ton of studies out there. We have agreement with our co-managers in a lot of places on, okay, we think this is the most reasonable estimate. Given all these factors, it's not an easy, we can't just go out tomorrow and do a gear study and come up with a new rate to use for a particular combination of gear in a particular river. It's
I
extremely.
mean, we're doing all kinds of studies on other stuff, and this seems to be a problem that keeps coming up. I don't understand why we can't do a year study on it. It seems to be something that needs to be studied. Seems like something that is a very good thing to be studied. I mean, I know I read a study on the study of the Hoe and Creel survey, and you guys spent all that money to study that, and you have done none of the 20 recommendations for the steelhead creel surveys. So we can say we don't have the money, but there's a substantial amount of money and time out there. You're just not doing it. And I'm not going to accept that.
I'm just going to suggest that we move on. We talk about this year's fishery. Mike answered your question. It's a subject we could spend hours on, but that's not really what we're here for today. So yeah, any other questions you want to ask before we move on to the next person?
I'm good.
Bob.
Yeah, I was just gonna tell Christian if he wanted to contact me. I know a lot about that hook and release study that's going on the Cowlitz. That's all I was gonna say.
Thanks, Bob. Any other questions? Not seeing any. Well, as you all know, we're all available as we move through the frantic next couple of weeks. Number of other meetings that'll happen leading up to the council meeting, but thanks for joining us today. Give it one last round for anybody with any other questions. Bob?
Yeah, so is this the front of the meeting? Is we have the coastal meeting and then we're basically done for the day?
Yes, I expect the Puget Sound rec session will last for at least a couple more hours. Puget Sound commercial session, I don't know how long, but yeah, this is the last engagement we have planned with the coastal constituents today.
Okay, I have a question for Jenny then, if I could ask just one more, please.
Sure.
Hey, Jenny, I know back in 2016, I was involved in the ad hoc group that was concerned with coastal, and basically at the time was all steelhead related stuff. But in that particular meeting, prior to 2016, we had no barbless hook rules applied on the coast in our freshwater fisheries prior to the 2016 ad hoc group concerning wild steelhead.
Okay.
In that particular group, we had talked about going to barbless hooks basically from middle of February to the end of April to protect our wild adult steelhead returning. In the action that was taken, as opposed to that proposal, was barbless hooks year round. And so I understand that when we do have, like our wild spring summer Chinook, and we have these wild summer cohos we're worried about and that kind of stuff. But like when it comes to salmon, and if like this particular year, if we get a package together where we're harvesting both wild and hatchery fish in all of our systems, what would be the purpose of having barbless hooks? And we don't really have any interaction with smolts that time of year. So we're not catching steelhead or salmon smolts that time of year. We're pretty much just catching salmon. Would it not be worth talking about putting barbs back on during the salmon season? I mean, for one, you and I've talked a lot. You know how conservative I am.
Yep.
If I have people there to harvest fish, I would just soon catch my fish and get off the system and not mess with more fish. Having barbless hooks, sometimes I have to, hook and play a bunch of fish, losing them before I can land the ones that I need to get off the water. And the fact that we're harvesting both wild and hatchery, I'm not sure what a barbless hook is allowing us to do. We don't have a tremendous amount of catch and release during that time frame. Most salmon fishermen, when they go there, are harvesting their limit of fish or their fish and going home. So is there a possibility of looking at putting barbs back on just in the fall salmon season, say September 1 or September 15th to, to the end of November?
Well, we can certainly take it as a suggestion. I hear what you're saying, especially on rivers. If we did go something more like one and done, would barbed hooks be potentially a component of that fishery? Let's see. Are you saying specifically for the Quileute or for all coastal systems?
Well, I mean, I primarily fish from the Queens north, from the Clearwater north. So, I'm just saying where we're allowing both the harvest of a wild and a hatchery fish, it's not making a lot of sense to have a barbless hook. We can harvest either one, right? The barbless hook was to release fish and to have less mortality on them, when significantly for salmon in the rivers, there's not a lot of releasing going on. I mean, there is some, but there's not a tremendous amount. So I'm kind of getting at the idea of, like, if we had barbs and we were able to land those fish easier, it's just that way we catch them when we're done, versus having people out there catch them and not landing them. It's definitely significantly harder landing cohos, and particularly with some of the gear we used, trying to land those fish.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Bob. I will put that down as a suggestion and look into the possibility of doing that. Mike, do you have thoughts on that regarding like the queets or?
Yeah, I kind of do. It's an all species regulation. And with that said, I don't know if we can actually address that in the North of Falcon process. We can change game fish regulations in North of Falcon if it's for conservation purposes only. So this might be something that needs to be taken up in the game fish when we open up all rules to a potential change. So I'm not sure we can do that here in the North Falcon process because it's a salmon-based process.
Okay, that makes sense. I appreciate that. So, okay, that answers that. The next question I have, Jenny, is what's the possibility of allowing for the North Coast, not so much, probably not the Hoe, but like in the Quileute system, to allow harvest of salmon up to December 15th. We usually close December 1, and maybe we just go to a hatchery only salmon after December 1. There's still a fair amount of hatchery cohos in the Solduck. Like when I say a lot, there's 5 or 6 miles worth of thousands of hatchery coho laying out there that we don't have access to after December 1. Would we have access to fish for hatchery fish, particularly in the Solduck, for another 15 days to be able to access those hatchery fish in there?
Okay, yeah, thank you for that one too. I will look into that one. I know that was brought up before in relation to extending, coho seasons into steelhead sort of management time. You do intercept them. Are they still looking okay to harvest Bob? Are they in reasonable shape?
25% of them are,
Okay,
the other 75 are kind of getting to that age, but I mean, November 1, we're still in there, catching hatchery fish, and then all of a sudden the next day we can't catch them anymore. And it's just kind of like they're hatchery fish. And particularly with an abundance of hatchery fish that we're having this year coming back, it would allow us to have another couple of weeks where we can go and do that. Yes, we have steelhead we can go chase in the boga shield and in the Kalawa, but it just seems a shame. I mean, our Solduck hatchery typically has so many cohos, they don't even know what to do with them all. And so I think they are there for the angler, so it would be, advantageous, I think, to look into extending the Solduck fishery to the December 15th timeframe and just changing it to a hatchery only fish. I know we're allowing some wild ones. Hopefully, maybe we're going to allow a wild one caught earlier. And if that's the case, then just change the rules and say hatchery only in that time frame.
okay, I will look into that one.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks, Bob. Any other questions? If not, thanks, Mike and Jenny, for fielding most of the questions today. If anybody here wants to pop into one of the other breakout rooms, I can send you there. Otherwise, I'll leave this room and go back to the main room, and I'll probably join one of the Puget Sound sessions. Anybody?
I'm also here, Kyle, to help you if you want help switching people.
Oh, thanks, Leah. Anybody here want to get put into one of the other sessions? Just speak up or raise your hand.
Yeah, can you transfer Robert over to the Puget Sound, please?